Unlike most countries, the real estate market in Nigeria is largely unregulated. This has led to an increase in some investors losing their hard-earned money to false agents, land grabbers, fraudsters, and fake developers. In Lagos, the Lagos Real Estate Regulatory Authority was created to address this problem, but the risk in the Nigerian property market still remain unresolved. Welcome to this property show. We will be looking at risks to avoid when investing in the Nigerian real estate market. I'll be your host.
And I am your co-host. The news is littered with stories of people losing money to scammers, land grabbers, and recalcitrant property developers. The record shows that about 25% of fraudulent activities in Nigeria occur in the real estate market. This sector therefore needs proper attention.
This will be discussed in some deeper detail. But before all of that, let's go to our Did You Know segment for some interesting facts.
Hello viewers, you are welcome to the segment of Did You Know, where we bring you helpful information. Now, did you know that according to the World Bank, there are about 1.7 million Nigerians in the diaspora, most of whom remit money from overseas into the Nigerian real estate market. Between 2019 and 2021, a total of about $60 billion was remitted into the Nigerian economy. That's a lot of money. Did you also know that the demand for student accommodation is on the increase in Nigeria? In fact, this is because the overall number of students enrolled in Nigeria's tertiary education system has increased. It now exceeds 2 million. On the topic of climate change, did you know that real estate accounts for an estimated 30% of worldwide greenhouse gas emissions and 40% of energy use? Did you know that noise pollution can affect house price? A recent study on the impact of noise pollution on residential property value in eastern Nigerian cities shows that residential units plagued by noise had a 3% lower rental value than those not so affected. Did you also know that a study also shows that single-family houses in noisy locations sold at a discount of 30% lower than areas not affected? Well, that is all we have for you today. Until next time, remember, you are still with Tops. Join us at the top.
Well, Yinka always gives you something to think about.
That's right.
Yes, so the case of climate change, like she mentioned, I can relate with that. Yes. So in Imo State, eastern Nigeria, for example, so residential houses are usually, situated around serene environment. Yes, unlike noisy environment. So the noisy environment, what you find there are usually commercial buildings. Yes, they're usually used for commercial purposes. Yeah. So if you have houses located in noisy environment, these houses are usually devalued.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So thank you so much,
Thanks, Yega. That was a good one. Anyway, we are still talking about how to avoid risk when investing in the Nigerian real estate market. But what risk, you may ask?
Well, there are 4 major risks to be aware of, and they are transaction risk, real estate personnel risk, building risk, and landlord and tenant disputes.
Yes, transaction risk expresses itself in various forms. Firstly, because some areas are unregistered land, proving title when selling can cause problem. And this is why sometimes same land are sold fraudulently to 2 or 3 buyers. An unsuspecting buyer, if not cautious, could find himself embroiled in court cases and fruitless litigation.
Yes, it gets worse. It gets worse. The battle for land even involve the so-called omonile. That's this is usually the case with Lagos.
Yes.
So-called omonile. What does this mean? Son of the soil. These are people claiming title to a sold land who then demand payments before any building work could commence on the land.
And see, the whole uncertainty in the real estate market here is compounded because there is no single source to refer when carrying out search. For example, in Lagos, lawyers have to do 5 searches to be able to find out whether that property is good.
Oh, you don't say.
It's a real issue.
There is also the added problem of having unregulated real estate practitioners in this market. Unlike in most developed markets, Nigeria does not have a regulated real estate market. This is sad. As such, you have some unscrupulous realtors who would fleece buyers of their lands, of their funds, without providing any real estate services.
Well, there we are. Look, earlier we had a property lawyer in our studio, and this is what he had to say about the market. Kaide, thank you for honoring our invitation.
Thank you for having me.
Excellent, excellent. So we're just going to cut straight in. We want to talk about investment risk here in Nigeria. So for foreign investors looking to invest in Nigeria, we're just looking at those risks they need to be careful of. So just going straight in, what are the risks involved when buying land here in Nigeria?
I will classify the risk involved in buying land in Nigeria to 3. We have the owner's risk, we have the title risk, then we have the land risk. What is the owner's risk? The owner's risk, if you are buying property from anyone, you ask me the most natural thing for you to do, the first step, the first point of call is to know who you are buying the property from. You need to be able to identify, place the personality of the person. Because you cannot buy property from someone you don't know.
Well, so you're saying they should KYC?
Yes, know your customer, know who you are dealing with. How do you get to know them? You can approach the necessary land registry. In Lagos State, we have land registries, Alausa in Ikeja, which is the custodian of all the title documents in Lagos. Of course, every state in Nigeria has its land registry. So in Lagos, for you, if you really want to know who you are buying the land from, if you not want to know your customer, let me use customer, you need to approach the land registry. Ask with the photocopy of the title document you will have obtained from the seller. Take it to the land registry. They will compare. They will check the faces. They will look at the photograph. They will check all the particulars of the property.
If a foreign investor is coming into Nigeria to invest in this market, just take us through what would be good, what kind of title would be good for them to accept here in Nigeria.
Okay, thank you. We have different titles, about 5 or so of them. Let me just list them out. We have assent, we have certificate of occupancy, we have deed of assignment, we have deed of gift, we have certificate of court judgment, then we have mortgage, deed of mortgage.
Right, so all of those titles are good titles.
They are good titles.
For a seller to offer for the buyer.
However, in time of priority, I will have to, let me explain, that certificate of occupancy seems to occupy a prime position. Now, certificate of occupancy refers to that title document issued by the government, vesting proprietary interest in you in respect of a land either sold to you by government or by the native.
I see. So if a buyer gets certificate of occupancy from the seller, that's good.
It's very
that's
good.
Good to go.
Very
okay.
Good.
Excellent.
So when you have a deed of assignment in respect of which governor's consent has been obtained, it's a very, very good.
So that's good title. So we've got the second one. Yes.
Then you have certificate of judgment.
Okay, that's a court judgment.
It's court judgment.
Okay.
When you are involved in a litigation matter, and at the end of the day, the court grants judgment in your favor in respect of a particular land, then you can take that certificate of judgment, register it at the land registry. It gives value.
So I have a question for you.
Yes.
So once a seller gets a court judgment,
yes,
that vests in him the proprietary interest in that land.
Perfect.
And he's able to sell that land based on the court judgment.
Based on the court
Excellent.
judgment.
So that's helpful. So what are the precautions should the investors take, given that in some places there's a prevalence of a fraud going on in land? We've heard the cases of Omonele. So if you're coming in, you're buying land, you're a buyer, what precaution should you take?
Well, to start with, the most important, the foundational requirement for any investor wanting to buy land in a place like Lagos with the cosmopolitan,
or any part of Nigeria,
any part of Nigeria, any part, is to get a professional. Get a professional.
So get a lawyer, basically.
A lawyer, perhaps real estate, but get a professional that will be able to properly advise you on every aspect of the transaction. Also, ensure that due diligence is done. Of course, one is related to the other. It's only a professional that will be able to do due diligence for you. Due diligence is very, very crucial if you are going to do, if you are going to buy land in Nigeria. You need to get this.
So if you have real estate practitioners you want to instruct, for investors, what should they do as a precaution to ensure they're dealing with the right practitioners?
Number one, and I think the state government is also helping with the law.
Yes, I know. I think there's in Lagos here they've got Lasrera.
Yes, Lagos State Land Regulatory Authority law. The law was enacted sometime, I think, in August this year, and of course, one of the focuses of the law is to certify or have a clear record of all real estate practitioners in Lagos. However, I must of course qualify that to the extent that there are so many real estate practitioners that are not registered under that law. There are so many.
And they're still practicing.
And they are practicing full time.
Yeah, so and
they are so practicing full time. So an investor should be very, very careful. You should try to approach the state government, assess the record, and try to see which of these real estate practitioners you can engage.
Instruct. Brilliant. Well, you've been very helpful. Thanks for coming in, Asha.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate you.
Having a property lawyer come into our studio, it has helped cast a light on the importance of consumer protection in the real estate market. And this is paramount in developed countries.
It is indeed. In England, for example, there's a whole body of laws on consumer protection. And in this topic today, the consumer is the buyer and the tenant. If you're a buyer, and you're looking to invest in Nigeria, you really need to KYC the seller. Get photo IDs of the seller. Make sure you're certain that he owns the land. And if you're a tenant, do the same. Don't speak to your realtor. Speak to the landlord. That way he avoids fraud. That's the advice one could give.
Okay, so are there sanctions or penalties for those that default?
Well, for example, the Securities and Exchange Commission here in Nigeria, they've been known to clamp down on some realtors, and that could be a form of consumer protection in Nigeria.
Well, I don't think that's enough, because they are focused on the capital market. So I'm looking at a situation where, the SEC does not apply, so.
Yeah, you're right. The Securities and Exchange Commission applied they regulate the capital market and not the real estate market. But if you have a realtor who is almost venturing into the capital market, SEC would clamp down. SEC meaning the Securities and Exchange Commission would clamp down on them.
That's good to know. So
you don't think it's adequate protection?
No, it is. It is. You have already informed us that if this doesn't apply, you have to ensure that as a buyer or as a tenant, you know, if you're dealing with the buyer, ensure that you're dealing with the owner directly, you know,
exactly.
and get the ID, get the necessary information that you require.
And Princess, there's one more thing I failed to mention, which you're aware of. In Lagos, they've got LASRERA, which is a Lagos State Regulatory Authority, Real Estate Regulatory Authority, and this is now a recent body that monitors realtors. So if you're a realtor, you've got to be registered with LASRERA if you practice in the Lagos real estate market, and they could then monitor any malpractices as the case may be.
Oh, that's good to note, you know.
Exactly.
Thank you so much, Godwin. Anyway, let's now take a well-deserved break. And when we come back, we will look at investment risk involving buildings and landlord and tenant disputes. So stay tuned.
Welcome back. You're still watching the Okri Property Show. If you've just joined us, we're talking about how to avoid risk in the Nigerian real estate market.
That's right. Before the break, we talked about the importance of assessing transaction risk and the real estate personal risk when buying Nigerian properties. Now we want to address the risk involving building construction and tenancies in this market.
Yes, the record shows that over 1,000 buildings collapsed in Nigeria, half of which is in Lagos. The key factors are poor material used, lack of supervision, and proper monitoring. For example, not too long ago, a 21-story building in Ikoyi collapsed, killing 42 people.
Oh, that's sad. For investors looking to invest in Nigeria, this is a factor to take into account. There is also the issue of fake real estate practitioners unlawfully collecting rents from prospective tenants. This is also damaging the buy-to-let market.
It is damaging indeed, and that's why not too long ago we interviewed a surveyor who practices in the Nigerian real estate market. Let's hear what he has to say about all of this. So, you've heard about the spate of building collapse in Lagos. That's unacceptable. You're an expert. You're an expert builder. What are the causes of building collapse?
We have so many causes of building collapse. First of all, let's say the materials. The materials used for construction. Okay, many a times you can use a standard material, but you know, the mode at which you use them is wrong. For example, your cement. We have different types of cement. You don't mix cement, you use just one particular type of cement for your construction. And then you have to make sure the cement are not expired. Then while mixing too, whether you want to cast, after mixing, you have to make sure you use that cement immediately. Not wait after 10 minutes or after 30 minutes, because we have certain time. So once you mix your concrete and you don't use immediately, it's failing. It's failing. So you have to make sure immediately you mix your cement, be it batching or hand mixing, or you have to make sure you use.
And there's different qualities of cement.
There are different qualities of cement. Actually, in Nigeria we use ordinary Portland cement. We have different types of cement, but because of our weather in Nigeria, we use ordinary Portland cement. Yes.
So cement could be a problem in construction.
Could be a problem.
Any other
the enforcement we use. This is the iron rod. Before you use any iron rods, we have standards. So you have to carry all the iron rods samples for test. You have to test. So it is when you test, you determine the strength. If it passes, then you use. If it fails, you don't use. You understand? So you don't compromise on any of these materials. The water you use for mixing has to be drinkable water. Don't just use any other water. If you use salt water for your construction for mixing, it might fail. You understand? It will reduce the quality of your concrete.
So you mentioned reinforcement. What other materials are important to ensure there's no building collapse?
The block is very, very important. It's as important as the reinforcement and any other object you use in the building. You have to test for your blocks too. You don't just go on the streets to purchase anyhow. block, you have to test. We have machines that test for the strength. We have the strength capacity to which the blocks must be. So you have to test. And there's a manual way we test for blocks too. When you carry the blocks, there are some that are very light. When you carry a very quality block, you will know.
You interviewed the surveyor. So what's your impression about what he had to say?
Well, it's very sad, the news really, because it very much echoed what we're saying in the studio, which is that, developers are putting profit above life. They're using inferior materials. They do not care. And the life of Nigerians is worthless to some of them, which is horrible. And that's why each state government should step up and monitor, not just wait for developers to come to you. You go to site, you look at soil test, you look at the planning, make sure that planning permission is complied with. That's where we ought to be at this stage. That's my take.
Exactly. The state government needs to step up. Please, they need to step up. So right now, the mood is down, but let's just lighten up the mood a little bit. So at this point, I would like us to go to our segment we like to call the side attraction. This is where we look at what is trending in the real estate market.
Although the property construction sector contributes about 4.5% to the GDP, there is still a shortage of about 20 million housing units in Nigeria. The increasing demand for housing coming from the diaspora is further putting pressure on the housing stock. As at 2021, the FDI coming into Nigeria from the diaspora was about $60 billion. To compound matters, foreign investors are also entering the Nigerian buy-to-let sector, thereby forcing house prices upwards. Well, interesting. You remember earlier, Yinka spoke about the amount of money is coming into the Nigerian real estate market. Yes. She spoke about $60 billion from the diaspora. Now, remember, we're talking about risk in the market. If the government could deal with the market, improve the market, this real estate market for buy-to-let investors and first-time buyers will literally grow. You see, because of the money is coming in. So we really need to get it right in this market. Don't you think?
Yes, I agree with you. I agree with you, absolutely.
Absolutely. Anyway, look, we've now come to the end of this episode. So we've said so much already. But if you've missed out anything, you could always go to our social media platform. Instagram, website, Facebook, and on Twitter.
Yes, of course. And the details are scrolling below. If you need to tell us about your experiences based on what we have covered today, you can send us an email at the Okri Property Show @gmail.com and someone will get in touch with you. So at this juncture, I sign off as Princess Aloko.
And of course, I'm Godwin Okri. Until next time, it's goodbye from me.
Okri Property Show.
Brought to you by Menvo Homes Limited.
The Okri Property Show.